It's the final week of the regular season of fantasy football. And who's picking on kickers after last night? I hope nobody. The Manchild Show with Boy Green live starts right now.
Let's go! It's time to talk to you. 'Cause it's always coming through. And Boy Green is always on the scene. And we're gonna always bring to life again. So get ready. Get ready, 'cause here they come.
All right, a Friday Live extravaganza a la fantasy football, our recipe of the day. Welcome aboard, everybody. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital at MC Show Digital. We'd love it if you're not already a subscriber to hit that subscribe button right now and become part of our growing family. We're giving away all kinds of goodies, leading our way up to 500 subscribers, so you might want to get in on it. It costs nothing other than the click of your mouse. And with that, a chance to win some pretty cool items. We'll be rolling them out one by one. But 2 items on the board right now, a $400 golf club, courtesy of our friends at Play It Again Sports. It's a beautiful Cleveland driver. And then also a Bobby Mercer autographed baseball going out soon. I think we're only about 15 subscribers away from the Bobby Mercer autographed baseball.
13 subscribers.
13 subscribers.
Yeah.
You could be one of 13 right now, and we'll give that Bobby Mercer ball away, and you could give it to somebody for Christmas or put it in your personal collection or whatever it is you want to do. All right, without further ado, let's talk some fantasy football. We do it every single Friday with our fantasy insider from RotoWire.com. Let's welcome in the one, the only, Joseph Bartel. Hello, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I think last night's game was a great kickoff to the Week 14 slate overall, and I think it's going to be a really good week of football just in general. I'm very excited for it, and hoping that it's as beautiful fantasy-wise as last night was. I don't know if every other game will be quite like that, though. So whoever had players playing in the Lions-Cowboys game, like we all predicted, probably is going to have a pretty big advantage here in the conclusion of the regular season for fantasy.
Yeah, I mean,
Joe, did you feel that shot that Lerch threw over there? He didn't name any names, but he mentioned the one performance of one Brandon Aubrey, who became the first kicker in NFL history with 3 makes of 55-plus. Last night, he had 23 points. It seemed like he didn't mention names, but Detective Esden over here, I think, connected some dots.
Yeah, it must be all the facial hair that you lost that you're able to get the brain cells going finally. But no, I agree. I was saying this to a buddy last night. I hate being wrong about this. The people, and it's not just Jim, but the people that I talk to often, they're like, man, to take a kicker in the 8th round, I'm so smart. Why doesn't everyone do this? I hate those people because they will tell you every single time when they are right, well, gosh darn it, I think you're right. I mean, I genuinely think I might be adjusting my formula next year where Aubrey is literally a one-of-one cheat code. I mean, it's Justin Tucker wasn't doing that. He was making 50-yard field goals and even was getting a lot of volume because the Ravens wouldn't convert in the red zone, whatever. The literal advantage that Brandon Aubrey gives that offense and the Cowboys relative to the rest of the league is incredible. Like Chase McLaughlin for the Buccaneers has been, I think he's made like 5 60-yard kicks. Like there are other people doing that. The way the Cowboys literally use their kicker as a weapon is something that I don't recall in my entire time watching football to this degree. It's really awesome. I never would have thought that I'd be here in the year 2025 talking about how great kicker play is and how excited I am to see like the strategy involved in it. But I will admit defeat. It is begrudgingly. Normally, I'm readily admitting defeat. It's begrudgingly, but I agree. I think Aubrey this time next year probably could even go higher potentially in drafts because he is a reliable 12 points in a position that doesn't quite give that in the same sort of way.
Well, now I'm miserable that I brought this all up. Every other person in the league now is like, I'm going to take a kicker really early and ruin what has been a great strategy for me. You know what, though, Joe? On that strategy front, I was talking to Paul about this off air a little bit. To me, it has to be like a transcendent guy. I just believe Aubrey is just unbelievable. I mean, he hits the ball dead straight. I mean, last night, I say, he hit a couple actual crooked ones, and they still stayed in. But the guy usually hits it dead down the middle, even when it's 55, 60 yards. He's just incredibly accurate. He has an amazing backstory. We were kind of talking a little about that. But the last guy before him, to me, that I would be willing to take a reasonably high draft pick on was Steven Gostkowski, the guy with the Patriots when Belichick was coaching the Patriots. He was another just an absolute weapon for about 4 or 5 years. he was just head and shoulders above every other kicker in the league. There are some good ones this year. Some guys have really closed in on Aubrey, and actually points-wise, Myers of Seattle is actually tied with him atop the leaderboard after last night's big performance at 144. So Myers is still really number one. I'm sure he'll get a couple of points this week. But Aubrey, to me, he passes the look test big time, and Gostkowski, same thing. And like you said, it's kind of the strategy of the team.
Yeah, I mean, would you rather have Javonte Williams or Brandon Aubrey? Because that was the same ADP this past year, and you would have been getting basically a running back one for relative free at that price tag. You could probably go down the line. And Emeka Egbuka at a various point was around that ADP as well, too. Now he's fallen off recently. I still don't like the concept, like you said, where Jason Myers becomes undrafted free agent or a guy that's picking with the very last pick as opposed to Brandon Aubrey. You can't find a running back without injury required that will have that sort of jump, whereas Javonte Williams right off the rip was sort of that guy. I like that there is a consistency factor with Aubrey's game, and it's not even just the 60-yard field goals. There was a 30-yard field goal, I think, in that fourth quarter, which would have put them down 7 as opposed to 10. And I just laughed at how easy it looked for him to kick it. It looked like me trying to kick a soccer ball to my 4-year-old when I don't want to club it in the head, like just like a little gentle tap, and it just goes flying 45 yards. And it's like that's just ridiculous. So I mean, I'll disagree on the Gostkowski one. Like I know what you're saying. There's no weather involved, especially in half the games in Dallas, that you can extend the range 15 yards or possibly longer than Gostkowski as well too. And that the Cowboys offense weaponizes Brandon Aubrey specifically. There is genuinely nothing like him in this game right now. And I can't believe that I am fascinated watching a kicker every single time, but he is genuinely somebody that I love strategy. I love the fantasy strategy conversations. I love strategy in relation to football and how game plans and stuff. So I nerd out every single time. It's like, wow, they crossed the 50. They can get 3 points. Like, this is crazy that the Cowboys have this advantage over anybody else.
There was one running back, and so he's the exception and not the rule. Forgetting his first name, Boyd Green's going to help me here in a second. Robinson, the Jacksonville running back, who I got in the final pick.
James Robinson.
James Robinson. I got him as Mr. Irrelevant 15 years ago, and I didn't even know who to pick. And Drake was sitting next to me, Brian Drake, who just started playing in our league, and I was like, "Do you got anybody, Drake?" I got nothing. I'm just gonna pick another kicker or something or another defense. And he's like, Brian Robinson, this guy from Jacksonville. He's got
James Robinson.
James Robinson. I was like, give me James. I'll take Robinson. We didn't even have a sticker for him. Boy Green had to write it in. That guy ended up being a stud that year. I was like, what the heck, man? I got a starting running back as Mr. Irrelevant. Whoa, what a difference maker it was. I don't remember if I won the league that year, but I just couldn't believe that you get that kind of mileage out of somebody that late in the draft. That is just a godsend. And that was pure luck. It wasn't even skill.
Which is advice to Drake. Shut up, dude. What in the world? Joe's like, hey, Paul, you got anybody?
No, he was giving me a guy like that.
Actually, as a matter of fact, there is a guy I didn't want, but I totally want him after the draft is over, but you can have him.
In the industry, I think for us, it's better if we get the call correct as opposed to getting to benefit from it. I feel better. I'm still victory lapping that Travis Hunter wasn't relevant at all fantasy wise, and we're talking about 2 months later. I didn't take Travis Hunter anywhere. I don't like to see people get hurt by that, but I'm happy that I still got that call correct at this point. I think that at least us in the industry, we probably care more about that than benefiting ourselves.
And by the way, Boy Green, some people don't stab their best friend in the back when their friend is looking for a little help. They actually offer a little help. Let me pick you up off the curb here, pal. It looks like you scraped your knee there. Maybe I could put a little Band-Aid on there for you. I don't think you're one of those people. Apparently, Brian Drake is, and I thank him for it.
Let me make this clear.
Nice little piece of advice.
If someone in our league is like, my back, and then they turn around and it's me, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And then I stab them again in the front.
There you go.
Yeah, hell yeah. You crush their bones into a soup and drink it.
Yeah, well, you reap what you sow, as they say. They reap what you sow. All right, let's get into it, Joe. This week, let's start, as we always do with the Thursday night football game. As you said, it was a rip-roaring good time, but some things that came out of it for sure. Number one, Jahmyr Gibbs is on a heater. So let's start with that one and how valuable is it right now rolling into the playoffs potentially to have Jahmyr Gibbs who's really getting it going?
Yeah, this is a good point. Obviously, so I felt really confident Gibbs would have a good game. I think I picked the Lions to beat the Cowboys outright. That seemed to be against the national consensus that Dallas has been riding high, and I trust really good coaching, and I think Dan Campbell is that, and especially in a do-or-die scenario, I believe, at home, too, it was all the more reason. But specifically, I thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be able to benefit on the outside zone runs. You don't want to run headlong into that defense that acquired Quinn Williams, has Kenny Clark, Adigwe as well, too. the way to beat that Cowboys defense if you want to run the balls on the outside. Now, Gibbs wasn't actually all that good as a runner, 12 for 43. He scores those 3 touchdowns. It was the 7 targets for 77 yards. That was the big part of that. And just a reminder again that outside of Christian McCaffrey, there's no better running back with the ball in his hands. I know that Devon Achane's been awesome. He gets the same sort of volume. Gibbs is a different level of explosiveness and the agility that he has, the stop-start part of it. Looking at the rest of the season schedule for Gibbs here, so we have the Rams next week, Steelers, and then Vikings. You could argue that 2 of those 3 games are suboptimal for Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that Rams game in particular, they're built to stop that sort of explosive plays. They don't want to have Gibbs be able to beat them in that sort of way. And I do wonder if the Vikings, if that game gets out of hand relatively early, are going to be a spot where the Lions don't need to have Jahmyr Gibbs to that point, and they want to save him for week 18 in a very critical game, likely against the Bears. So is Gibbs going to be a league winner in the way that he has been to get people to fantasy playoffs? I would say no, but obviously you're playing Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, this guy is easily the top 3 running back in the league right now, and you don't want to be facing him, but I kind of say it's a suboptimal rest of the season schedule, at least in the paper here.
And, speaking of suboptimal, thanks, George Pickens, you bastard, for giving me 5 catches for 37 yards and half-assing most of your routes out there. Really appreciate that.
And let me just jump in on this a little bit.
Sure.
Boy Green and I were actually talking about this. Who was our guest? We were talking about with him. We were talking about Pickens with one of our guests.
Dalton Wasserman, maybe?
Yeah, maybe it's Dalton. Yeah, I think it was Dalton. Yes, we were talking to Dalton about it in our Wednesday live show. And I made the comment. I was just kind of, squawking a little, out of the ethos, but I was like, for now. Because Pickens is going crazy. And I was like, for now, I was like, this is at the moment kind of embarrassing to the Steelers that they let this guy go and he's turning into a superstar, man. And they're struggling over there with DK Metcalf and company doing nothing and Aaron Rodgers not being able to get the ball out. And here's this guy going crazy. And then, as they say, a leopard shows its spot. So pick it up where you were talking about, Boy Green. But that wasn't just a down game for George Pickens. There were things going on in that game that have been picked up by the analysts and are being talked about all morning on television. Go ahead.
So let me shape that into the question, Joe. So I was just sort of peeking at it. I think I even peeked at it before last night. Like, wow, Pickens had 30 points, like 17 or something in our full point PPR league. I'm like, damn, okay, George, and keep the train rolling, buddy. So he has this performance and he gets, absolutely lambasted. Richard Sherman went off on the Amazon Prime thing again, saying half-ass, you don't get paid for stuff like this. He looked uninterested, disengaged, used all these words to sort of light him up. Should that shake the confidence of any fantasy owner that has George Pickens moving forward after this? Or is this just a wake-up call? George's like, sorry, I had a bad day at the office. And then he goes back to the dominant play he's had for most of this.
He was a volatile player with Pittsburgh. I never believed that this was like some sort of massive emergence for George Pickens. I thought it was in large part due to the circumstance, the Cowboys trailing or needing to score points and its relation to their defense. And also the way the offense and Dak Prescott have been playing overall, you're just going to have 2 receivers benefit. I'm actually blank. How many times was Michael Gallup a fantasy relevant player that we mentioned in past years too? Pickens is a better player than Gallup. I'm not really trying to make that sort of argument. I'm just saying the Cowboys have had 2 functioning fantasy receivers basically every year for the past half decade or so since Dak Prescott has sort of emerged. I agree. I didn't get to watch all the game to that extent. I felt like I was watching it, but man, just the montage of clips where Pickens was not interested or the interception where it hits him right in the chest and then the Lions return it almost to the touchdown at the beginning of the third quarter. Egregious, but that happens often. It feels like for a guy like George Pickens, and that's where I was like, he's never going to be an elite receiver in that sort of tier. I think you have to play him, obviously, the way he's been going right now, and especially if my guy CeeDee Lamb is out, which that would be my luck here entering the fantasy playoffs that he's unable to play. Pickens is going to be a monster, but I don't think he's getting 30 points every week. I think he is volatile, and I would almost be worried that we have those bullets already spent and that won't be the same kind of player moving forward, whether or not this sort of thing happened on Thursday.
Yeah, and CD got concussed. To just touch on that real
yes.
quick.
Yep.
Again, the modus operandi this year, Joe, for concussed players is that it always resulted in at least 1 game missed for the most part.
Right.
We are not seeing anything, and some even more than that. So give me your thoughts on that, because that's got to be a concern for any CeeDee Lamb owner out there.
Yeah, 15% of the concussions, at least from a first time that season, they do return in 1 week. He'll have 10 days. That is actually, if you're going to say what's an optimal circumstance to have him come back. Now, I think I don't know. I thought CeeDee Lamb, when that play had occurred, was expressing frustration. Now I think more so we saw like the fencing signs with his fingers.
Yes.
That almost always would be the indication that he'll be out for at least 1 week. Obviously, not a fantastic spot if you're relying on CeeDee Lamb. I wonder if Ryan Flournoy can be a benefit if we're talking about two receivers again. Ryan Flournoy had a really good game against the Lions as well too. I was impressed even dating back to that Packer game early in the season, and he might be a waiver wire pickup to possibly stream in deeper leagues. But it's really frustrating to say, oh well, I know the chat just said CeeDee Lamb would have had 2 yards a touchdown. I agree. He was clearly on pace to have a monster game, and the Cowboys desperately needed him with whatever George Pickens was dealing with. I don't know what happens next week, other than you're probably playing most of those Cowboy guys if you have them.
And by the way, here are the numbers. Lamb finished up with 6 catches for 121 yards. The 121 yards led the team, even though he didn't play for most of the game because of that concussion. To your point on Flournoy, just to follow up with him, he had 9 catches, 115 yards, 1 touchdown, was targeted 13 times. You said in deeper leagues. Well, our leagues, a lot of the leagues we operate with is 12-team leagues. Is that deep enough for a guy like this?
To be picked up.
Yeah.
Yes, but I don't like. I mean, I'll be the great example as I have CeeDee Lamb in there right now. Would I play Ryan Flournoy or DK Metcalf, which would probably be my replacement? Probably saying DK. I guess it depends on what quarterback play is going to be in Pittsburgh. Would you play Jacoby Myers or Ryan Flournoy? I think it's probably Jacoby Myers as well too, unless there's some circumstance we see here against the Colts here. So I would call it fringe wide receiver 3. It feels like, and we've had this conversation in RotoWire before. Really, after wide receiver 12. 13 through 35, if you're just looking at weekly ranking cheat sheets, they're all the same. They can all do the same sort of thing. They all have the same sort of ceiling and floor. It's been a really frustrating year if you're looking for a receiver. So in that regard, if you're trying to just cycle through things, but I don't know a scenario where he's a must play or a must pick up necessarily.
Joe, when we get into the playoffs, and this is it, we're in the final week of the regular season, and then we are in the playoffs, it really is a week-to-week proposition.
Yeah.
So do you strategically, play a tried and true guy? I'll use an example. Somebody like, I don't know, like a DJ Moore, who has not been a great player, but is kind of a tried and true guy and is clearly in the rotation there in their wide receivers in Chicago. Or do you go get an Isaac Tesla or somebody like that that's in a spot perhaps where
swing for the fences.
Out, the guy could get you a couple of tutties. I mean, do you do that in the playoffs, or do you stick with the tried and true? What's your motto, and what do you advise people?
Typically, it's tried and true, but let's make this even harder. I mean, I have Lamar Jackson in a bunch of different places right now. I'm playing Tyrod Taylor this week over Lamar Jackson. Not just to benefit our guy here, Boy Green, but that's how frustrated I am with the way that the Ravens offense is going. And I think you can specifically pull that off at quarterback and probably tight end. It's a little bit trickier at running back and receiver. Again, mentioning what we were saying earlier with the overall position. Tesla is getting some cool touchdowns. I want more volume. Volume is king in fantasy, and that's not really happening. Ryan Flournoy could get more volume. Like I don't necessarily mind Flournoy over DJ Moore, for example. Like Moore is kind of closer to that tier than we kind of all want to acknowledge. But if we're trying to juggle what the ceiling play is, especially with the floors on a lot of these guys that'll be waiver wire pickups, Parker Washington's been a really good example for a number of weeks. I like Parker Washington a lot as a Jags receiver. I would rather just stick with the known and the possibility that DJ Moore is just going to get involved. Now, specifically, I think next week they play the Browns. Not a great spot. I would probably try to rotate out DJ Moore. But like if Roma Dunze doesn't play this week, he was a DMP both Wednesday and Thursday. Maybe that changes for the Bears offense as a whole. Like there are definitely circumstances, I'd say, specifically where there are positions that have volume, like quarterback and tight end on the waivers, that I would consider that. But it is pretty tricky to pull off at running back and receiver.
Joe, what do you do with a player like Justin Jefferson? He's a stud.
God.
You love Justin Jefferson, but good Lord, I mean, the quarterback, Max Brosmer, completed more passes to Seattle than he did to Justin Jefferson. I mean, what do you do with a player like that? Because it's hard to envision a scenario where you bench Justin Jefferson, but good night.
It's really, really frustrating. The way I would try to tell people, and this is not a great way to do it, but don't think of Justin Jefferson as a top 5 pick. Think of Justin Jefferson as your round 8 or 9 selection. And if you try to have it in that mindset, then I think you get to a spot where you can either play him as a flex. Maybe he's your last wide receiver. I don't know how many options I would consider over Justin Jefferson, but I had him ranked at like wide receiver 28 this week. And that was probably a generous spot. He hasn't even performing up to that level either. I don't know how JJ McCarthy gets better. Maybe over time, given he's a younger quarterback, that's fine too. But geez, it's a really, really tough spot if you made the fantasy playoffs, because realistically, there is no upside for him. And this floor is so incredibly low that you could make an argument for a number of other players. Christian Watson, maybe you're returning Jaden Reed, for example, off IR. Like, there's a number of players that you'd probably want to go with instead of this frustration and headache that is Jefferson and the Vikings.
Talking with Joe Bartel, our fantasy insider, RotoWire.com. Today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Cam's Pizzeria, where it is always love at first slice. Let's just take 30 seconds, learn a little bit more about our friends at Cam's. Be right back.
When you think of Camp's Pizzeria, think about two of your favorites, their zesty buffalo chicken wing pizza or their tasty chicken bacon ranch. Over 16 specialty pizzas made fresh daily with the best ingredients. Indulge in their homemade calzones, subs, wraps, salads, and their famous cannolis for dessert. They're all made with love just for you. Order online for 10% off at camspizza.com. Locations in Camillus and Oswego. Cam's Pizzeria. It's love at first slice.
We are back. Joe Bartel with us, RotoWire.com. It's our live fantasy football segment. We do this every Friday at 10:30. Don't forget to hit the like button. That's that little thumbs up. And if you're feeling even nicer than that, click the subscribe button. Become part of our growing family. We're giving away some really cool items in the next few weeks if you just become a subscriber, which is absolutely free. Gentlemen, I mentioned that I was going to go back and look at all the trades that happened in the Champs League over the course of this year. Do you have any idea? Let's take a guess here. Number of trades total in the Champs League this year. Boy Green, you get the first swing. What do you want?
Okay, wow. All right. So number of I don't know. So there's 14 weeks in regular season. Deadlines like week 10 or 11. I don't know. Maybe 20. Maybe there's 20 trades.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say 18.
22 is the official number.
Wow, you're a lucky number, Lerch.
22
nice.
trades. All right. We can't go through all 22, but I'm going to go through a few today. All right. Just see. These are the ones that happened at the very beginning of the season. Joe, just who won the trade? Was it a fair trade? Whatever you want to do with it. All right. Who won? Now that we can look at it and see what actually happened, who won the trade? Some might kind of be washes. All right. I started with this one. Isaiah Pacheco, Javonte Williams, and Hollywood Brown shipped off for Devontae Smith and Travis Etienne. Joe, who won that trade?
Yeah, probably.
Close, right?
Yeah, it's close. I would probably say it was the Devonta Smith and ETN side, because you could get two starters as opposed to Javonte Williams, but it's close.
Close, right?
Yeah.
All right, here's another one. Jameson Williams for Nick Chubb. I labeled this one a terrible trade when it happened, and I think now that it's all kind of played out, it probably has, but J-Mo was down for a while. Chubb just really hasn't been all that good.
Yeah, you haven't gotten anything useful out of Nick Chubb other than he has to stay in your roster, which is the worst spot to be in. It's J-Mo for sure.
All right, Josh Downs, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Sam Laporta for Drake London and Dalton Kincaid. Who won that trade?
Yeah, probably still the Drake London one, where he was an obvious starter. Kincaid had a few moments as well too. I would probably lean the Drake London side of things.
All right, here's a 3-for-3 big trade here. Emeka Igbuka, Kenneth Walker, and Matthew Golden for Jacoby Myers, Quinshawn Judkins, and Jawan Johnson. Joe, you were involved in this trade.
Yeah, I was going to say, gee, I don't know who did that, but whoever got the Judkins side of things looks really smart with that.
Look at that trade.
I mean, Emeka Igbuka would have been for a while that I was looking on the wrong side of that, and I think it's more or less balanced out.
Myers
and Myers was almost a drop candidate at a certain point with the Raiders too. So it was not an obvious trade by any means, but I think Judkins' performance over recent weeks would probably say that's the winner for that.
All right, two more quickies. Zach Ertz and Devontae Smith for Terry McLaurin. This one happened in mid-September.
I guess that you can get Zach Ertz and Devonta Smith to play as opposed to McLaurin, who's been out basically all year. That's a pretty obvious win.
All right, and then another one at the end of September. This one happened September 26th. Jerry Jeudy and Derrick Henry for Josh Allen, the quarterback.
Yeah, and I don't think you've been really exactly happy with the Josh Allen side of things either, but neither have you with certainly the Jerry Jeudy part. But Derrick Henry has been super disappointing too. I mean, these are like 90% Jamie trades, right? Where are all the Boy Green?
I was just about to say, wins? I appreciate no Boy Green trade.
I guess you didn't get going, but I'll save the Boy Green's up next on a trade big here. Dak Prescott straight up for Rashad Bateman. This happened on September the 26th.
Gee, I wonder what that trade was supposed to. Austin, this is an Austin one, right? It's okay. Austin can be be learning how to do better trades with somebody outside of Boy Green for the first time all year in a different league. We're fine. So
Yeah, you got kicked out. So unfortunately,
we're good. Yeah. So I'm thankfully that we can hopefully have the embargo next year where somebody doesn't just only trade with Boy Green, and maybe he won't be able to benefit from that again.
Yeah, he has actually. Boy Green has had some clunkers this year, so that was not one of them. But he has had a few clunkers or ones that we might, when it's all said and done, label as maybe you didn't get the best of this guy on this one. But
I'm human.
We'll get into some more next week. I don't want to just flood the airwaves here with trade after trade in our league, but it's always good to kind of touch base, see how things are going. All right, want to jump over to the comments, PG?
Well, actually, the one thing I want to do before the comments is, and we've mentioned it at the top of this is the last chance for a lot of leagues. Again, it's hard to generalize because so many things are custom in different leagues, but for the majority of people out there in the fantasy universe, this is their last regular season week. Some people control their own destinies, Joe. Some people don't. Some people, it's simple. Win and you're in. You punch in your ticket. Others like, oh, if this guy loses and I win and the right points, I can jump. What is your advice to people as they head into it? It's already underway. Of course, there's a ton of fantasy action last night for Lions and Cowboys side. What's your advice to people as they're in this moment? Like that Lerch over there. He already punched his ticket to the playoffs. He's got to buy. He's got nothing to worry about. But there's a lot of us others playing fantasy football here that are fighting for our lives.
Yeah, I would say first prepare your rosters if you're going to make the postseason. If you don't, whatever, you're hurting the rest of your league mates, which is something I care about. I never want to give somebody a free square to walk in there. So I'll say this often: if you have receivers that you're never going to play, Keyshawn Boutte's been my pretty clear example for a few of these, but I'm sure there's a bunch on different rosters. I would rather pick up the Bashal Tutins or the Ray Davis of the world or Blake Corum, who would obviously become the starting running back for the team. Or if there's receiver scenarios, maybe Tesla kind of fits in that equation. But I want to block somebody from getting a free square. There's a couple of years ago where Justin Jackson was a fantasy starter when Austin Eckler was out. I think it was 3 years ago for the Chargers. And Jackson literally won people leagues because you could get him off waivers like that. I don't want anyone to do that. I want to remove the possibility of a fluke play happening. If my team loses, it's not because you got a guy off of waivers to win you the week. So my bench will look basically like that if I make the fantasy playoffs. Otherwise, this might be the 1 week, and my colleague Jim Coventry does this every week, which is crazy to me, but this might be the 1 week where I will not check any of my lineups until Tuesday. You should not be sweating anything right now. Like it doesn't matter. You can't control anything anyway. Hands off, pencils down. Let's just see what happens. Enjoy football this week where it's going to be a lot of competitive and fun games, and hopefully you're on the right side of things because I don't want to be stressing about this from Saturday until Monday. I might just not look at any teams until Tuesday kind of rolls around.
All right, let's start off with this question, both Lerch and Joe, and Jamie said it. Is this the best regular season finale in Champs history? It's crazy. Here are the standings, folks. I'll remove Jamie's comment for a second. So these are our teams seeded 1 through 7 at this point. Lerch is the only one that's punched his ticket to the playoffs. But from Big Al, who's 8-5, all the way to Hate the Drake, Brian Drake is 7-6. Me at third, I could completely fall out of the playoffs. Like that's how tight everything is with wins, losses, and everything that's together here. That again, 2 through 7, no one's locked into a playoff spot outside of Manchild, and anyone could flip flop in any direction based on wins, point totals, and things of that nature. Is this as crazy as it appears, Joe, or does this happen all the time?
Yeah, and if he expanded to the 8th person, Jabber's Wing Sauce has the most points out of anybody above myself and Drake too. Like, and if we both lose, he gets in the playoffs off of virtue of the point total. It would be really crazy if you want to pull up Jamie's comment again. Yeah, sure. This would be the craziest thing ever to somehow lose a loss, right? Because he's 2-7 and then finish 8-6. So Jamie and math are escaping him, of course. But that would be pretty incredible to go 2-7 and then somehow finish 8-6. I know he just typed it wrong. I said this 5 weeks ago. I thought Jamie's team was going to make the playoffs and was going to do really good. So I actually feel really confirmed with my bias in that one too, and I hope that he does well with it. It's been fun. I think there's going to be a lot of sweating going on here for the fantasy postseason for our league, and I'm excited to see how there's going to be a tough luck loser for sure. Somebody's going to be on the outside looking in, which will be frustrating.
And just real quick to explain this quick, I believe he's talking about, I'll hide the comment here for a second, that anyone seeded 2 through 7 could finish 8-6. So he's saying all these groups with who they face off, and that it would all be based on points or something.
I see. I thought you were saying his record was 2-7. Okay.
Fine. No. I think that's I don't like defending Jamie at all, to be honest.
All right. You're right. How dare I
screw him? He's a loser. But all right,
go ahead, Lerch. He was texting me all week, and this is a sentiment of what he was texting me early in the week, where he's already, now that he's essentially looking like he's going to be in the playoffs, assuming nothing crazy happens this week, but it looks like he's going to get in. The fact of the matter is, he he's trying to strategize who he wants to play, and I was like, would you stop? Like, the
I just feel like
gods
that's
will
jinxing
decide
things.
that, you know,
Yeah.
like there's no way I'm thinking about that. All I'm
Right.
thinking about is my roster and what I can do. Right. I can't
Yes.
control the uncontrollable. So let's control the things you can control. Let's keep it, you know, a little bit more between the lines here. All right. Let's not worry about who we might play. He's throwing out this
Right.
comment, Joe, I don't want you in round one for whatever reason.
I think you would now with Lamb
Maybe
out,
after
but
CD Lamb's got a
yeah,
concussion,
exactly.
he might be a little bit better
Yeah.
than that. So
Well,
I'm
if the playoffs started today as things are currently constructed, your buddy Joe Bartel will be playing Boy Green in the opening round. So,
that would actually be my favorite spot. Like if I can end this tyranny right there and then, I would be very happy to do so.
No, thank
Yes.
you. Yeah, so that's possible. Guys, make sure you submit your fantasy questions here. We'll be here for just a few more minutes here with Joe Bartel. We'll try to fire through a lot of your questions out there in the universe. We said this earlier, but we'll go back to it for Keenan Dole 12 commenting in on YouTube with CD Lamb and the days off and everything. Do you feel confident that he will play?
I don't feel confident. Again, the fencing part of things would tell me that was more a serious concussion relative to others. I don't study brains. I don't know necessarily how people view that. I'm assuming Lamb will not play. I don't think Ryan Flournoy is an obvious pickup. Obviously, it would be great if Lamb does play, and that he has 10 days gives you a shot more than any other time. I think it was like 15 to 20% of players that had their first concussion that year still played the following week. Realistically, he's not available. That's how I put it.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's keep
Terry
going.
McLaurin is back. Jamie jumped on this one.
Yeah.
So he said Scary Terry was good for me last week. Talk about Terry McLaurin and can he be a factor for rosters?
Yeah, and Jaden Daniels could be back this week as well. I don't know why the Commanders are doing that. The season's lost, but I also was wrong about this with Joe Burrow 2 weeks ago, or I guess last week. Like, I didn't think the Bengals should bring back Joe Burrow. Watching him talk about the playing with the guys and that emotion that he had in that Thursday win over the Ravens on Thanksgiving, it's just a reminder that these guys are professional athletes, but they're also people too, and it hurts them mentally to not be able to do the thing they love. So I hope that Jaden Daniels comes back. I hope that he doesn't get injured, and that would help Terry McLaurin. This is a tough matchup, though, right? With the Vikings defense, and given how bad the Vikings offense is, every team is basically saying we don't want to beat ourselves because then we can win this football game every time. And I think McLaurin's also a risk to get injured as well too. But you would hope that Jaden Daniels gets a bit more volume throwing his way. And how bad that Commanders defense is, I do think McLaurin, provided he actually is healthy, is going to be in a good spot for the fantasy postseason, where not a lot of people are probably having him and relying on him because they didn't make it to this point.
Joe, rein in some of your advice here, because Badshaw in our Quad Cities League, it's me or him. We're both fighting for one last playoff spot, so ease up on the advice here. Make sure you try to throw him in a different direction if you can. Badshaw is a two-parter here, both at tight end, Juwan Johnson or Dallas Goedert, and then at wide receiver, Cooper Kupp or who said the tight guy?
Io Manor, yeah.
Okay, there
I would actually say, if it's possible, I would play both Juwan Johnson and Dallas Goedert. Like, if you could do a tight end and then the flex play, I don't know if that is, but I like actually I would play Juwan Johnson over Goddard, but I like Goddard over both those options as well. I don't really want to get into the Titans receiving core. I liked Chimere DK at various points this year. That's been frustrating. Io Manor had earlier points of the year where he was a factor too. I think I would default to Cooper Kupp, but frankly, if I could play Juwan Johnson and Dallas Goedert, I'd probably do that. That's going to be a really interesting game Monday night if Justin Herbert's available, and how the Eagles kind of attack things with that Chargers defense being pretty good.
All right, here's
Matt,
one, Joe.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think
yep.
I had it.
We went to the same one anyway. Yep.
Henry Charbonnet or Bucky Irving?
Matt,
yeah, I went to.
Man, you got one out. Who's
I went and looked in the RotoWire weekly value meter. To me, and I thought this was more or less true. Bucky Irving we had ranked at 10, Derrick Henry at 7, Charbonnet down to 26. I think I'd have Charbonnet a little bit higher and Derrick Henry a little bit lower. You need Charbonnet to score a touchdown. I mean, I think he will. It's a good enough matchup for him this week. I think Derrick Henry and Bucky Irving still have to be plays for me. I understand the Ravens' offense hasn't been fantastic. Steelers are just vulnerable in a lot of ways, and the way I would right Baltimore's ship is by getting Derrick Henry the ball more. I don't know if it happens this week or as they ramp up more to the postseason for Baltimore, but I think Derrick Henry, Bucky Irving have to be the plays.
Thank you, Matt from Auburn, for that question. Saying Boy Green wants Jamar Chase back. I'm good with the trade that I made. I didn't have it on my bingo card to trade my number 1 overall pick at some point randomly in the season, but yes, we're certainly there. Were you surprised?
You'd like him back? You kidding me? You got Justin Jefferson in a trade. You wouldn't want Chase back right now with Joe Burrow back in the lineup? Yes.
All right, maybe I'd want him back. Were you surprised by? So in one of my leagues, and thankfully this is less teams, but I'll bring it up for Amon-Ra St. Brown. He had this bounce back game. I was nervous about like sort of how all the prep was leading in. I'm like, I've got other options. It was a smaller league, so I went to a different receiver. But were you surprised by Amon-Ra St. Brown? And if you have a similar medical scenario where they're doing that pregame checkup, apparently gives a thumbs up to Jeremy Fowler, and I'm like, that seems super risky.
Yeah.
What do you do? Who do you believe?
I'm trusting, like, that was the infrastructure. Lions playing at home, the dome. There wasn't any weather conditions with that. And if the Lions are saying that they want to have him out there, I'm trusting that it's not just a decoy. There was a time maybe 2 or 3 years ago where T. Higgins was in a similar spot and ended up just doing wind sprints. Like, he played 20 snaps overall, got 0 targets. It was clearly just a decoy. There are some teams I'm trusting. In the case of St. Brown, what he means to that offense, if he's out there, he has to be a factor. Like, you're not decoying St. Brown. He has to be a critical part of that offense. But it is a case-by-case basis. And unfortunately because we're playing against him, but fortunately for a lot of fantasy managers, and unlike the CeeDee Lamb thing, it's nice to have St. Brown be available when it matters most for the fantasy regular season.
Yeah. All right, Joe, one last one before we get you out the door. Where is it? Right here. Question on the Justin Herbert situation. Do you think Justin Herbert will play Monday night? And if not, what do you think it means for the Chargers receivers?
Great question overall. I was surprised when it was announced Sunday night that he had a fracture in his left hand, that he's requiring surgery. At that point last Sunday, both Herbert and Harbaugh were saying they expect Herbert to play, that he gets the additional day. I don't know if that really matters. Then you get the details of it, that there's multiple fractures and there's screws and whatever in there. And the language that we've seen from Harbaugh and Herbert since have walked back just a little bit. And it seems ridiculous to have him out there against that defense in this sort of scenario. I think regardless, I'm probably trying not to play most of these guys. Like, I have Quentin Johnston, and he's not going to be starting for me at all. Keenan Allen probably isn't going to be start for me. I would like to not start Keenan Allen anyway. So it's really like Gadsden or Lab McConkey. And I do think it's going to be a little bit of a lesser spot if Trey Lance is your quarterback in that scenario. So it's not ideal. One good news, though, is that Jalen Carter, the stud defensive tackle for the Eagles, done for at least this week, possibly the year. That will allow Kamani Vidal to be a better runner, probably Amari Hampton if he's back as well too, and that opens up the Chargers offense just overall a little bit more. But I don't know if Herbert plays, and I would ideally not like to play most of these Chargers receivers until we get some sort of confirmation, probably Saturday.
All right, again, Joe, I just want to say super annoying. I just said turn down your fantasy insights. Batshaw's like, sweet, I'll play both tight ends now. What the hell?
There you go. He's got the slot. He's got the slots. Badshaw, go get him, Badshaw. Knock him out of there. That's Triple C, Boy Green?
Quad Cities, as a matter of fact. So
Cities.
Again, this goes to show you the craziness, though, right? Our Champs League, one team is locked up in a playoff spot. It's you. Quad Cities, 5 of the 6 have been locked up, and then 6 and 7 are now battling me and Badshaw. They throw a pipe in the room, shove both of us in, and only one of us are walking out. Well, he just got a little more help.
I'm 3 for 3 in the playoffs this year. I'm in all 3 years and in first place in 2 of the leagues. Yeah. Ooh, it's been delectable this year. All right, Joseph, thank you as always, man. Always great to catch up with you. We'll be talking playoffs when we get together next week. Good luck this week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. See you.
All right, there he is, the one, the only Joe Bartel, giving us some love on all things fantasy football. All right, Boy Green, let's clean up any other comments and things we want to get to before we get out of here. We do have our football picks coming up in a little bit, which we will get out to you guys early this afternoon. So stay tuned for that, where we pick every single game against the spread. Let's see where the season standings are. I had a pretty decent week, Boy Green, but again, I went down in the Sunday and Monday night games. If I can just get. And you know what my strategy this week, by the way, is going to be?
What's that?
I'm going Oppo. I've picked the Sunday Monday night game. I'm just swapping those 2 games. I'm taking the opposite team. I want to see if that works for me. I have done so poorly on those 2 games. Usually where I always buttered my bread has been the opposite this year. So I'm going full George Costanza, not on my entire pick sheet, but just on the Sunday and Monday night games. I picked the team, and then I switched to the other team with no reason.
Wow, okay. Well,
just to try to see if I can change the karma, man.
Sure.
Like sometimes you get bad karma. You just got to do something to switch it up. That's what I'm doing.
I can respect that. Yeah, to clean up some of these final comments, like Big Al says, I lost 3 weeks because of Sunday morning waiver wire pickups, and Joe Nobody got fluke performances. Ooh. Again, it just goes to show you, though, to never give up. It's never too late, right? Like you're on a Sunday morning, you're like, you know what? Let me not be complacent. Let me just take one more gander through. Yeah, that helped Tatiana. She picked up a Colston Loveloon who scored 30 points. He was in free agency. Just said, let me just pick somebody up. Picked up Colson Loveland. He had the crazy game in the Bears-Bengals game, 30 points, and that ended up beating Manchild, unfortunately. So there you go for that random week that happened in the Chumps League. And now she has a chance for the playoffs. But it just goes to show.
She did that all on her own with no help from anyone.
I'm
right?
sure she did.
She just knew exactly who Colston Loveland was and just let me go get him.
That's probably it. Michael Wilson on that random Sunday morning or whoever it is. So I would say, this is good while it burned you on this side out. I'd say never be complacent. Now, don't go crazy. There's a line, and
you don't want to do stupid
where that
things,
line is.
but,
right. Yeah.
But you have to. The waiver wire never ends until the game starts. So
Correct.
You should always check. I did one of those. I don't do it very often, but a couple of weeks ago, I did it on a defense. I had a defense locked in. I think my primary defense was on bye. I went out and picked up another defense during waivers, got one of the ones I wanted. Okay, I'm in good shape. And then I just started plugging into it a little bit more as the week goes on. This is typical for me. What's going on this weekend? What are the big matchups? What are some of the statistical analysis on some of these games? And then all of a sudden, one of the other defenses, there were, a lot of people saying good things. And I was like, ooh, the numbers actually look good on this. And I picked up this other defense, but I'm not married to them. And so then I went out and just before the game started, dropped the defense I had picked up from the waiver wire because the other team was out there, picked them up, and then they got me like 25 points. So I was like, what the heck, Yeah. So you don't be complacent until the game start. Take one last poke around, make sure you're really confident and solid in your lineup. You can't overthink it either. I've done way too many of those, this guy. Just like
you got to trust your gut.
To what you commit. You got to trust your gut, or you got to trust the numbers, or whatever it is that you trust. Okay. I was listening to a fantasy guy the other day on Fantasy Sports Radio. It's like, never trust your gut. And I was like, well, if I didn't have my gut, I wouldn't have anything. I mean, right. Maybe he's got a bad gut and he just plays it strictly by the numbers. I got to have that gut.
100%.
My gut always has to be the thing that I settle on. Even if it fails, I'm more willing to live with that than to just live with the numbers. Okay. That's just the way I'm wired, I guess. But some people would rather live with the numbers and not trust their gut at all.
That separates us from the animals, folks. The gut. I'm not just gonna beep boop pop up. The computer tells me this. I guess that's what I gotta do. The projection says this. Hell no. I've said this about Joe, who joined us on the show, and everything moving forward. Absorb as much information as possible and filter it. What Manchild tells me, what people in your life tell you, and you filter it, and then you have to make the decision. It rides or dies with you. Take as much information as possible and educate yourself, but you're the one that holds the sword. So I always say to filter out information. Everything Joe says isn't right, but Joe does this for a living, and I trust a lot of what he says, and I'll use that in decision-making process, but I make the decision, not Joe. So.
Badshaw's asking, am I going to jump into the Quad Cities next year? I mean, he's hoping he can get out of that league, which would be great, but he's just curious. I think I probably will. Okay. I mean, I've gone far, I've gone all the way down to the Triple C. And
Why
I'm actually having a lot of fun this year. I mean, I think when you take on an additional league and then you end up in first place in that league, as I am in the Triple C.
Rewarding, sure.
You're kind of like, yeah, what the heck? Let's throw another one on the fire here and see what happens. The only thing I don't like about oversaturating yourself with leagues, and some guys can handle it, and I'm just not one of those kind of guys, is if I get into too many leagues, then I miss things. And then that becomes a problem. You just whatever I commit to, I want to be 110%.
Of course.
Or really 100%. There's no 110%. I want to be 100%.
Right.
So, the fact of the matter is that if I'm spreading myself too thin and then whoops, I didn't realize I had an injured guy there and I didn't replace him. I knew on Wednesday, but I didn't get to it till, and then all of a sudden I got an injury in my lineup. That's bad. And that can happen when you have a lot of leagues. So you have to dedicate a period of time that's on Sunday morning, every Sunday.
Yep.
To just go through them each with a fine-tooth comb and just make sure you got it right. I'll give perfect instance. I have a family league. I'm in 4 leagues right now, R3, and then I have a family league that I'm in with my son. And it's an easy league to navigate for the most part because it's only 8 teams. So there's lots of good guys on the waiver wire, and you never have a problem picking somebody up if somebody's out. But I had looked at it earlier in the week. I just didn't pick up on Jake Ferguson, that my tight end George Kittle was on a bye. And Jake Ferguson was on my bench. So I should have flipped, obviously, Ferguson in and put Kittle on the bench, right? Except I didn't do it. Okay. And so now Ferguson's game started, and then I realized that Dallas is already playing too late. So now I had to go on the waiver wire and go pick up a tight end. Now, lucky in that league, that you can go get a guy. I think I got Jawan Johnson.
Yeah,
so I mean,
right.
it's like no big drop off, but still, like that was a mistake that happened just simply because I'm juggling a lot of balls and Thursday. So not only is it Sunday, but you also got to take a peek on Thursday,
Of course.
And I have a very busy Thursday, so I have about an hour before the game starts to like take a look at things and see and just pull my guys out of the lineup who are on Thursday that I don't want in my lineup, or
Sure.
get the guys in that I surely want in. But Thursday is a little hectic for me, so it's just crazy. So you have Thursday, and then you have Sunday, generally speaking, and then if you have weird games like the Friday game, the good,
Saturday
Friday
games are
game,
coming up.
the Saturday playoff games so I know so you just got to be committed. So I don't like to overcommit, but I probably will do the Quad Cities next year just because I feel bad that I'm not participating in all our leagues. So.
Well, we talked about this the other day, Lerch, and then we got to get over to our NFL pick segment. But someone said, you saw it in the comments, hey, if a spot opens up in the league, let me know. That person's already in the Quad Cities League. They replaced someone, and it's less about this final regular season week. It's more so about locking in their spot for the future.
For next year.
Spot opened up, and bing, boom, bam, they already took over a team. So, hey, there you go.
That's great. So again, keep in touch with Boy Green on that stuff, folks. For anybody that really loves fantasy football, wants to be more highly involved, or just learn it. You don't have to be an expert. This
Definitely
could be a breeding and a learning ground for you, but you must be committed. So, you don't have to be great to start, but you need to be committed to start.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're in the wrong league. You should go find something else. All right. We got to go. Unfortunately, we got NFL picks coming up. We'll get that out to you in just a little bit. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for the great questions as always. Good luck this weekend in fantasy. And we will see you too. Peace out. Take care.